I accidentally found a paternity test report in my husband's bag. The child's biological father turned out to be my husband. My entire body went ice cold in an instant, because ever since we got married I had never managed to get pregnant, and the Sterlings had grown increasingly resentful of me because of it. Right then, Helena showed up at the door, spewing her saccharine poison. "You barren has-been. You should have stepped aside ages ago. Don't you know how sick Mason is of you? The woman he wants now is me." After I uncovered the truth, I confronted Mason. He only looked annoyed. "What nonsense are you spouting? I've never done anything to betray you." I couldn't help but laugh. "Let's get divorced." Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. That afternoon I was tidying the house when I pulled a paternity test report from my husband's bag. The moment I saw the familiar DNA profile, chills swept over me, because it was my husband's genetic sequence. Thanks to my job. After seeing Mason's profile once, I'd committed every allele to memory. I work at the Riverdale Forensic Institute in Connecticut. I know how to read lab reports like the back of my hand. With a sinking heart, I studied the document line by line. The applicant was listed as the child's mother. The baby was still in utero at only 20 weeks. I skimmed to the conclusion, based on DNA comparison, the probability that the tested man is the biological father exceeds 99%. Even after reading that, I refused to accept it and checked the alleged father's sequence again. My heart froze solid. No mistake. It was Mason's DNA. Every genome is unique, and his carried rare breakpoint anomalies I could never confuse with anyone else's. I sat pale and trembling on the carpet, instinctively pressing a hand to my own flat stomach. 3 years of marriage, and Mason and I still had no child. The Sterlings made no secret of their displeasure, yet I longed for a baby with the man I loved. So I turned to IVF cycle after IVF cycle, but no matter what we tried, implantation failed. I couldn't understand why. Both our medical workups came back normal. Still, I couldn't conceive. I hunted through our files until I found Mason's recorded DNA data. The sequence matched the report exactly, shouting at me that he already had a child, and the biological mother wasn't me. My gaze dropped to the mother's name, and a jolt shot through me. Helena. Of course it was her. Years ago Mason had hired her as a hotshot finance exec straight out of an Ivy League MBA program. Older than Mason, aloof, perpetually single. Whenever I'd seen them together, they'd been all polite distance. Clearly the performance had fooled everyone. A wave of desolation crashed over me. Helena and Mason both knew what I did for a living, knew I kept the house in perfect order, yet he'd still brought the report home, without even trying to hide it. Had they wanted me to find it? My thoughts tumbled like laundry until I forced myself to breathe. I didn't return the report to his bag. I simply sat and waited for them to come home. Tonight I didn't cook the usual lavish dinner. The instant they walked in, Eleanor rolled her eyes at me. "Are you pig stupid? You couldn't even make dinner? Trying to starve us to death? What sin did this family commit to end up with a lazy, sterile cow like you?" Eleanor piled on every insult she could summon. I sat silent on the sofa, ice gathering in my chest. Ever since marrying Mason, no matter how crazy my shifts got, every household chore landed on my shoulders. Sometimes Eleanor would throw tantrums demanding I take leave just to cook her dinner. In her eyes, because I'd married in but failed to produce a grandchild, I deserved to live as their slave. Mason married such a sloth. Pure calamity. She's doing this on purpose, trying to starve us. A toxic witch under our roof. How will I face the ancestors when I die? Richard chimed in, echoing Eleanor's curses like a tag team. I didn't argue. I simply looked at Mason. He ignored me and, same as always, slinked off to his room. For a moment I was stunned. When exactly had his attitude calcified into this indifference? The warmth in his eyes had been replaced by glacial distance. We still slept in the same bed, but a Berlin Wall of blankets ran down the middle. He stayed so far away he might as well have been in another zip code. Around the house he dodged my gaze, and wordlessly detoured around me. Now he couldn't even be bothered to speak. Once, though, we had loved each other. I still remembered the first time he looked at me, electric, wonderstruck. There'd been a time when I was his whole world. Because I'd tasted that devotion, I'd given everything back. I endured his parents' cruelty for his sake, and after years of barrenness I felt crushing guilt. I feared his disappointment more than anything. I bent farther and farther, erasing my own boundaries, desperate to give him a child. In fact, right after our wedding I had been pregnant, but a few months later the baby slipped away. Eleanor blamed my carelessness. Mason didn't reproach me, only whispered that we'd have another. So each new failure dug the guilt deeper. The paternity report hovered in my mind. I kept asking myself, hadn't we once been in love? Why betray me? Was it only because I couldn't carry a child to term? The more I obsessed, the crazier it felt, until a reckless idea surfaced. Let me test him. If the problem was loveless, or simply my sterile womb, I changed into the slinkiest lingerie I owned and walked walked up to him. Honey, my heart bled, but I forced a smile. He jerked his head up, startled, then his eyes flickered with revulsion, not a hint of desire. In that instant I understood. He had betrayed me because he no longer loved me. If he had, he'd never have let his parents tear me apart, never have wronged me in the worst way possible. Only it felt as though I had woken up too late. I had just started to ask him about the paternity test report, but he misread my intention and immediately looked away. Today's no good. You're not ovulating. You can't get pregnant. The next second he yanked up my skirt, exposing my belly, speckled with bruises and track marks from countless needles. It looked terrifying. Mason stared at the mess with pure disgust. Seeing you like this turns my stomach. I'm not interested in the slightest. My face drained of color. At that instant any last scrap of hope I had for him died. I jerked the hem of my skirt back down, hiding the wounds the way you'd hide pride that's already been trampled to dust. I look like this because I've been trying to give you a child. What right do you have to mock me? My questions won no remorse, only a sneer. You've worked so hard, so where's your success? All these years, all those attempts, have you carried even one to term? You're sterile. You work in this field. Don't you know it yourself? Words from the person closest to you cut the deepest. Mason's few clipped sentences were enough to make my heart ache. And in that moment I finally, fully woke up. He no longer loved me. We could barely stand the sight of each other. What was the point of clinging? Silently I slid back under my blanket and spent the night alone. I realized the ones in a hurry weren't me. It was Mason and Helena. They had let me glimpse that paternity test so I would explode and file for divorce myself. Mason's company had flourished lately. If he divorced me after cheating, I'd walk away with half of everything, but if they drove me out in disgust, I might abandon my claims just to escape, so I would wait for their next move. I knew Helena wouldn't sit still. I never expected her to march straight into the house. The next evening, fresh off shift, I found her on the living room sofa, chatting merrily with the Sterlings. The laughter died the instant I stepped in. Helena approached wearing a mask of guilt, every sugary word designed to spark my rage. I'm so sorry. I only meant to let Mason glance at the paternity test report, then take it back. I never thought he'd treasure it enough to bring it home. Mason has always wanted a baby. He was overjoyed, and I couldn't stop him. That's why I rushed over to apologize in person. It's my fault he carried the report back. Apologies spilled from her lips, but her eyes glittered with provocation. She mentioned the report again and again, as though afraid my anger might falter. I watched her one-woman show in silence, nausea swirling in my stomach. Before I could speak, Eleanor leapt up and barreled toward me, shielding Helena. Helena, why bother with this sterile cow? You're carrying our little Mason's child. You're the family's savior. What gives her the right to demand humility from you? Eleanor's tirade almost made me laugh out loud. Helena played the wounded fawn. I only wanted a child of my own, so I asked Mason for help. Where's the crime in that? You're a barren husband who should have stepped aside long ago. Didn't you know? Mason can't stand you anymore. His heart belongs to me, but I'm not here to wreck your marriage, and I don't need him, or his money. I'll raise the baby alone. There's no reason for you to treat me like this. I nearly laughed in her face. They were the adulterers, yet somehow I'd become the villain. Before I could retort, Eleanor was already comforting her. Helena, don't worry. The Sterlings won't let you suffer. Now that you carry Mason's baby, we'll give you our name and a proper home. While stroking Helena's back, Eleanor flung insults at me. I've been sick of that barren hen for years. Someone like her deserves to be booted out. Perhaps because I had already seen the family's true colors and expected nothing. Eleanor's curses left me cold. My gaze locked on Helena, and suddenly I overturned last night's theory. If Mason had brought the report home on purpose, the shock value was already achieved. She had no need for this encore. The more I considered it, the clearer it became. No one knew better than I how desperately Mason wanted a child. Helena's pregnancy was still early. For safety's sake, she could wait for birth to confirm paternity. There was no medical need for an amniocentesis now. Though the procedure was relatively safe, risk still existed. In seconds my mind raced through 1,000 possibilities. Where's Mason? Eleanor snorted. Your husband's whereabouts? Shouldn't you be the one keeping track? Try showing a little interest for once. I almost laughed. Mason hadn't reported his schedule to me in ages. How was I supposed to know? Ignoring Eleanor, I gave Helena a calm sweep of my eyes. I didn't believe a syllable she uttered. I suspected she had slipped that report into Mason's briefcase herself. My stare rattled her. Her smile collapsed. I cut straight to the lie. You should have come while Mason was here. If you truly want no strings attached, why rush an amniocentesis? Don't pretend you don't know the procedure. carries a risk for the fetus. Is this really about loving a child, or about something else entirely? Helena's face turned paper white. I had voiced the very plan she wanted hidden, the scheme her sweet facade was built to mask. Ever since learning of the pregnancy, Eleanor, once so shrewd, had abandoned all reason, throwing her weight behind Helena. Helena, don't be afraid. We know you're a good girl. She's only slandering you. Mom and Dad are on your side, always. Eleanor hugged Helena, crooning reassurances. I found the scene hilarious. After years of servitude as the dutiful daughter-in-law, I had never earned a single kind look from Eleanor, an outsider, yet they shower her with devoted care. Helena, you don't owe me an apology. When it comes to Mason's betrayal, I'll settle that score with him myself. Whatever problems you two have, sort them out between yourselves. I couldn't be bothered to argue. I turned and headed back to my room, but I heard Eleanor sneering after me. Such pretty words. Yet I don't see this sterile cow walking out the door on her own. My precious grandbaby is growing bigger every month. When he's born he'll need a proper name. I ignored her, but once I was inside my room her voice floated in again. Helena, you're incredible. Pregnant so fast. Not like that barren has been. Thank heavens you listened to me and took the fertility supplements I gave you. A chill ran through me. I hadn't realized Eleanor had a hand in this too. She'd known long before everything blew up, might even have helped craft the entire scheme. They never stopped redefining the bottom of my opinion of them. A cold laugh escaped me. When Mason came home I'd already packed every last thing of mine. As usual, he avoided my gaze. Helena came by today. She says the baby she's carrying is yours. That you love her and the child so much you brought the paternity report home like a keepsake. I read the results. The child is yours. Mason's face darkened. What exactly are you implying? I couldn't be clearer. Helena is pregnant with your child. Are you planning to deny it? Mason was silent a long while. He offered no excuse. I'm not denying anything. The child is mine. At his admission I pulled up the handle of my suitcase. Then I wished the two of you every happiness. Perhaps my calm enraged him. His face flushed and he seized my wrist. Luna, what the hell is that supposed to mean? Helena told you she has no intention of destroying our marriage. What more do you want? Why are you obsessing over this? All these years I never realized how vicious you are, hurting her, trying to hurt her unborn child. I stared, floored. She'd actually turned the tables on me. That's what she told you? Why would I harm her or her baby? Assault is a crime. Why would I risk that? Mason looked utterly unconcerned. You're just jealous because you can't get pregnant. I almost laughed in his face. Mason, after everything, I never knew you could be this kind of man. Shouldn't you be the one explaining yourself? What right do you have to accuse me? You cheated and got her pregnant. I'm the one owed an explanation. You wronged me, but you're not worth me breaking the law. There's nothing left to say. Let's divorce. I wrenched my arm free and walked out. Suitcase rolling behind me. Inside that suitcase were the voice recording of Helena's taunts at my door and a copy of the paternity test. I had the evidence. Even in divorce I'd get what was mine. That certainty freed me. From behind came the Sterling's gleeful voices. Thank God she's gone. Now Helena can move in. In my view we should have thrown the sterile cow out ages ago. I left and checked straight into the staff dorm at the Riverdale Forensics Center. Not a single message from Mason followed. He must have assumed I'd never actually divorce him. Just like every tiny quarrel before, guilt would make me crawl back with apologies. Too bad. Not this time. I'd tolerated them because I'd felt guilty. Now, to hell with them. The next morning I hired a lawyer to draft a divorce settlement and couriered it to Mason along with a photocopy of the paternity report. Minutes later my phone rang. Luna, how long are you going to keep this up? I told you, things with Helena aren't what you think. What more do you want? I never realized you could be so filthy-minded. He ranted on. I almost laughed. Who's the filthy one here? I cut him off, my voice cold. You've received the settlement. Sign it if you see no issues. I'm exhausted. I don't care about you and Helena. I just want this finished. He exploded. Luna, do you even hear yourself? You're actually divorcing me. Don't come crying later. I was past patience. I'm done with small talk. Be smart and sign. I hung up. I buried myself in work. But soon a commotion rose outside. Rushing toward my office, the door burst open. Richard and Eleanor stormed in, faces twisted with fury. Luna, you toxic witch, how could you? You can't bear children, so you begrudge anyone who can. You want the Sterling line dead? I had no idea what they meant. Eleanor lunged, clawing at me. Helena's pregnancy was stable, until she saw you yesterday. Today she's spotting. You did something. If my grandchild dies I'll kill you. Witch. Her grip was iron, nails digging in. Richard swung a fist. Enough talk. Let's teach this shrew a lesson. His palm sliced toward my face. I tried to duck, but Eleanor held me fast, nowhere to go. I squeezed my eyes shut. Yet no blow landed. Adrian, the forensic genetics expert our center had fought to recruit from MIT, had caught Richard's wrist mid-swing. I exhaled, then shoved Eleanor off with all my strength. Someone call security and the police. We have intruders assaulting staff. I turned to the colleague beside me, who still hadn't snapped out of his daze. Someone immediately came to his senses and called the police. We're the Sterlings disciplining an unfilial daughter-in-law. This is our family business. I dare any of you to call the cops, even if the police show up. They can't meddle in our household chores. Eleanor snarled at them. The colleague froze under the threat. I emailed Mason the divorce settlement this morning. The instant he signs it, I officially have nothing to do with your family. You burst in here, cursing and shoving. You've injured me physically and psychologically. Every word you just said is slander, and my attorney will handle it. Feel free to find out whether the police are allowed to intervene. My voice carried razor-edged frost. Then, methodically, I recounted what had happened the day before. Yesterday, when Helena showed up, all of you were present. I was nowhere near her. I never laid a finger on her. If something happened to the baby in her belly, what could it possibly have to do with me? You want to pin a made-up crime on me? I'm telling you, never going to happen. I smoothed my clothes and, in unruffled tones, described how Helena had intruded on my marriage and shown up flaunting her pregnancy. I also made it crystal clear that Eleanor had orchestrated the whole stunt. Everyone's gaze toward the Sterlings turned suspicious in a heartbeat. Cornered by those stares, the Sterlings flushed with rage and lunged to hit me again. Adrian stepped between us in a flash. If you keep swinging, the charges will only be heavier when the squad car arrives. Minimum 15 days in lockup. Sure you want to spend them behind bars? The warning sliced through his normally gentle voice. The Sterlings clamped their mouths shut, startled, but it didn't take them long to flip back into shameless mode. No wonder a cheap woman like you wants a divorce. You already had the next man lined up. You betrayed my son, so you'll walk away with nothing but the shirt on your back. Eleanor's eyes darted, dumping a vat of tar over my head. I was speechless for a second. You know perfectly well what really happened, so stop smearing me. Still, for all your trash talk, your taste isn't bad. Look at Adrian here. In what way is he not miles above Mason? The minute my divorce is final, I'm going straight after him. Stop blocking my path to true love and go nag Mason to sign those papers. The Sterlings, used to me swallowing every insult, were shaking with disbelief at my newfound tongue. Furious, they raised their hands again, but security guards were already hurrying up the stairs. Realizing the tide had turned, they shot me a venomous glare and stalked off. I exhaled in relief. When I glanced at Adrian, his expression looked oddly amused. I apologized immediately. Sorry, Adrian. I only said that to needle them. If I offended you, I'm truly sorry. He studied me, broke into a soft laugh, and changed the subject. Luna, you just used me as your prop. Don't you owe me a thank you dinner? Of course, no problem. I nodded. Absolutely. When are you free? Let's pick a time. How about after work today? I wanted the favor repaid fast, so I agreed at once. He tossed me a casual, see you tonight, and headed out. Tonight. Then, Adrian. When quitting time came, Adrian and I walked into the restaurant I'd reserved earlier, a cozy bistro in downtown Riverdale. Halfway through the meal, the day's circus replayed in my mind and embarrassment washed over me. Sorry you had to sit through that circus. My relationship with them has always been toxic, but today they went full rabid. His voice stayed mellow. They're the ones in the wrong. None of it's on you. I gave a small laugh. That's how I see it. Anyway, I'm about to be divorced, finally out of that suffocating cage, and that baby of hers isn't going to arrive. Their fantasy is crashing down. He blinked, but instead of prying he lifted his glass in congratulation. Then let me be the first to toast your escape. His words brightened my mood. I clinked my glass against his. As we were leaving, Mason barged in, face contorted with rage. He rushed up to us as though I were the offender. Luna, have you no shame? All these years together, and you want a divorce for another guy? His nonsense nearly made me laugh. Who betrayed whom here? I seriously wondered how I'd ever been blind enough to fall for this man. Mason, you know exactly what really happened. By the way, have you signed the settlement yet? I reminded him coldly. That only incensed him further. Luna, you don't even bother explaining yourself? I found him hopeless. You cheated during our marriage, got Helena pregnant, and you never offered me one word of explanation. I'm just having dinner with a colleague. Why should I explain that to you? In all our years together, I had always spoken gently. He froze at this new tone. Adrian, maligned for for no reason, stared at Mason with open dislike. After the afternoon spectacle at the lab, his opinion of the Sterling clan had hit rock bottom. Adrian and I are co-workers. Nothing more. Tell your parents to stop defaming us. Your parents' stunt today, and now yours, has become harassment. Hearing Adrian speak, Mason clenched his fists. Who the hell do you think you are, talking to me like that? This is between Luna and me. Stay out of it. He ranted like a lit firecracker, drawing annoyed stares from every diner. I didn't intend to become public entertainment, so I yanked him outside. Adrian followed, positioning himself protectively at my side. Luna, stop this. Okay, come home with me, Mason suddenly pleaded, grabbing my wrist. I shook him off. Mason, do you even realize what you're doing? You cheated while we were still married, got Helena pregnant. Her parents are already calling themselves in-laws, and she's basically moving into the estate. So why are you still here harassing me? He swallowed his temper and tried to explain. The baby she's carrying is mine, but what's between her and me isn't what you think. I won't let her move into our house. My wife will always be you. Come home with me now and I'll pretend I never saw the divorce settlement. I almost laughed at how shameless he sounded. Not happening. The only thing I want from you is your signature on that settlement. There's nothing else for us to talk about. I'm not going back with you. I was done wrangling. I stated my position flat out, still unwilling to give up. He reached for my arm again. I stepped aside before he could touch me. And tell your parents to stay away from me and my colleagues. If they don't, I'll sue. With that I turned and walked away. I hadn't expected Adrian to follow. I apologized right away. Sorry for dragging you into this mess today. I'd wanted to take you to dinner to say thank you. I never meant for it to blow up like that. Adrian shook his head to show it didn't bother him. But there is one thing I'm curious about. Something you said during lunch. You mentioned her pregnancy won't hold. Why is that? I let out a slow sigh. Because I only just found out Mason is carrying a lethal genetic mutation. I'd had no idea before. Yesterday, while packing to leave his house, I came across a medical report of his. The results showed a serious chromosomal defect. Conceiving is nearly impossible for him, and even if it happens, the embryo rarely survives past the first trimester. That was the moment it hit me. He'd probably known all along. My miscarriage wasn't my fault. It was his. Yet he hid it for years. Let me take the blame. Allowed his parents to humiliate me. By then my heart was so scarred I couldn't even work up fresh rage. I just wanted clean separation. Adrian asked nothing more. After that Mason kept stalling, refusing to sign. Work had me swamped, so I hadn't pressed him. I figured I'd confront him once the caseload lightened. Before I could, he showed up first, reeking of alcohol, looking wrecked. You know, Helena lost the baby. It didn't make it. I felt nothing. You had to know this was coming. So why the show of despair now? My voice was ice. Calling his bluff. He jerked his head up, eyes wide with disbelief. You knew? Yes. If I hadn't stumbled on your test results, I'd still be in the dark. Anger finally cracked through as I spoke. All these years I'd bowed to his parents because I thought I was the defective one. Luna, listen, he begged. When you miscarried, I was devastated. Later, when we kept failing, I worried it might be me. So I got tested, but I couldn't tell you. I was terrified you'd leave. He paused, then pressed on. Year after year, seeing you childless. I felt so guilty I couldn't even meet your eyes. When Helena suggested we try, I thought, maybe if she can carry to term, then you could too. I found his excuse grotesque. He'd known the truth. Let me absorb every ugly insult, and now used it to justify cheating. You realize your mutation makes viable pregnancy almost impossible? Yet you still slept with her, knowing any baby would likely miscarry. Looking at him, I felt only revulsion. I'm sorry, Luna. I'm so sorry. The guilt ate me alive. I swear I never stopped loving you. Can you forgive me? Just this once. I didn't waver. Never. Mason, sign the settlement and let's be done. I walked off without another glance. I braced for Eleanor and Richard to come roaring after me, but they never did. A few days later the signed divorce settlement arrived by courier. I exhaled for the first time in years. I threw myself into work, and Adrian and I saw more and more of each other. Rarely had I met someone who spoke my scientific language so fluently. We began having dinner after shifts, hiking on weekends. I prized his intellect. Our bond deepened. Mason and I had booked the courthouse date right after he signed, but he kept delaying, claiming schedule conflicts. Today was the first opening. Seeing him again shocked me. He looked a decade older. None of that mattered to me anymore. The paperwork went smoothly, and when the clerk handed me the final divorce decree, I couldn't stop a small smile. He opened his mouth, then whispered, Luna, can I have one last hug? No need. I refused without hesitation. Outside, Adrian was waiting by the steps, surprising me. He'd reserved a table to toast my new beginning. Over dinner, I found the floor scattered with candles and roses. He asked me to be his. Laughing, I accepted the bouquet, and him. Thanks for listening. listening. If you enjoyed the story, like and share it with friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more tales. See you next time.